I'm thrilled to be here to kick off the first ever research track at FDRS. Thank you to the organizers who are volunteers who have given us an incredible conference and all the planning going into it. Really spectacular, so thank you so much to the organizers for the invitation. Yes, absolutely. Wonderful job. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the current status and future goals of the lipedema research. And I'm Laura Harmachek, the program officer at the Lipedema Foundation. I have nothing to disclose and want to mention that the foundation receives no external funding and sells no products and services. So a lot of you have seen this graph before, and what I want to point out is that lipedema was first described by Allen and Hines in the 1940s, and since then, the lipedema literature has increased. This is depicting the number of publications, the year is on the x-axis, and the number of primary data publications is on the y-axis. If we zoom in to the recent times, 2005 up until 2024, we see an upward trajectory. We see that specifically in 2017, there was an increase in the number of publications and the impact factor of these primary data publications. The Lipedema Foundation is a global funder, and we began in 2017, and we funded about 68 projects total. In 2024, we have a couple of great milestones, and that is the NIH included lipedema in one of their requests for proposal. Really fantastic milestone. And we have the same number of publications, primary data publications, in 2023 as we did in 2024, but there still is an upward trajectory. So for specific research updates in 2024, I don't expect you to read any of these publications. This is a very tiny list. This is to highlight that there are 85 total publications in 2024, and 58 primary data publications. So the Lipedema Foundation, and myself specifically, read through the literature and keep a close eye on the lipedema articles that come out. And we cite this on our Legato Library. So there's a QR code there. We highlight lipedema adjacent, lipedema publications, and those that are open access, so you don't need a subscription to have access to the data that's out there. Today, I'm going to be highlighting several relevant publications. I'm going to start broad with epidemiology, and then head into near-term actionable items and continue out to more long-term cellulomolecular and diagnostic papers. For epidemiology this year, there was a publication by Alosimi et al. Who highlighted a Saudi Arabian cohort. We are really interested in understanding the global prevalence of lipedema to understand genetic underpinnings and potential trajectories of the disease. So we need more cohorts globally. We don't have, this is the first cohort in the Middle East, and there were 115, yes, absolutely, 115 publications. The findings in this cohort in Saudi Arabia were similar to other lipedema findings, including that diabetes was lower than anticipated given the adiposity of individuals, and there seemed to be a familial predisposition. So in the future, it'd be great to have multi-center studies, particularly in the Middle East, again, to understand the prevalence and to address the underdiagnosis of lipedema globally. I'd also like to note a publication that came out regarding an Italian cohort as well. And so I don't have time to discuss this, but you may peruse at your leisure all of these articles of note. For therapy, I'd like to highlight an article by Cervinska et al., who was discussing compression therapy in combination with exercise. So this was a small cohort with 24 individuals in the final analysis. The findings were that the compression therapy with exercise was an effective treatment for lipedema, and there seemed to be a positive impact on lipedema symptoms, including an increased quality of life with a combination of compression and exercise compared to exercise alone. While this is a limited sample size and a short observation period, this may be an effective treatment for reducing lipedema symptoms. I'd also like to highlight several additional articles, oops, wrong one, my apologies, of therapies that are, for the most part, more invasive therapies such as liposuction. But go ahead and peruse those at your leisure as well. In Nutrition and Ways of Eating, Lundanes et al. Had a cohort that they compared in a randomized controlled study, low carbohydrate diet with a low fat, low energy diet, and had 2 additional papers of note to come out. This particular paper was a gastrointestinal hormone, ghrelin. They analyzed 55 subjects in the final analysis, and they found that this post-meal hormone, ghrelin, was reduced in the lipedema cohort after the meal. So what this says is that low-carb diets may have the potential to manage appetite and weight in people with lipedema. I'd like to note that this was a small study and more studies are needed, and that nutritional interventions are difficult to generalize over the entire population. So while this is an average, everyone is different, everyone responds differently. And then also there are the additional articles on this same cohort by Lundanes et al. There were several guidelines and frameworks that came out in 2024. These are from Germany, Brazil, and right here in the United States. And please go ahead and look these up. Again, due to time, I'm not able to go in depth into these frameworks. For clinical and adipose studies, there is a fantastic study by Cifarelli et al. This was funded by the Lipedema Foundation, and we have Dr. Tom Wright to go in depth into this article in just a few talks. So while it was a relatively small sample size, they actually found that there was low local inflammation and the fibrosis actually remained high due to about a 9% reduction in weight. This demonstrates that they also showed lipedema-specific adipose changes with this diet intervention. I would like to note that right now we have no way to characterize lipedema fat, either molecularly or physiologically, from obesity fat. But this is a fantastic article, very interesting, and we're excited to hear more about it. There was also an article published, also funded by the Lipedema Foundation, that discussed thrombotic outcomes in patients with lipedema and lymphedema. For cellular, molecular, and diagnostic potential, there was a lot of omics papers that came out, a few omics papers. But I would like to highlight Scalisi et al. That looked specifically at platelets and the genomic differences, or transcriptional differences in people with lipedema and lymphedema. Again, this one is Lipedema Foundation funded. This was a small sample size and pilot study, but they found key differences in platelets, the gene expression in people with lipedema and lymphedema. There could be unique biological pathways in platelets that may contribute to obesity and these other cohorts that were examined. And I would like to note that the reason the authors looked at platelets particularly was due to the 2020 article, Platelet Factor 4, that could be a potential molecular biomarker. I do want to note that they reported that platelet factor 4 was not the highest differentially expressed genes, which is of note and interesting. I also want to highlight additional omics articles, one about microRNAs, and there will be more information about microRNAs coming out in the coming years to supplement current microRNA information. There's also an article looking at estrogen in adipocyte differentiation. This article was Lipedema Foundation funded, and hot off the press in 2025, Leon Straub published an article defining the molecular hallmarks in lipedema using a multi-omics approach. And so check out this article. March 15th is when this came out. So the key takeaways are we need to understand globally what's occurring, and the more regional and global reports of lipedema are valuable. Nutritional interventions may be useful for weight loss, but larger studies are needed, indeed. Compression therapy combined with exercise does appear to be an effective conservative treatment for patients with lipedema. And as an avid reader of the lipedema literature and a grant funder in the lipedema space, we know that the lack of model systems in vitro and in vivo make it relatively difficult to study lipedema and recapitulate the symptoms. And so human samples are needed. To this end, the Lipedema Foundation has invested heavily in a Lipedema Foundation biobank, and I'd love to tell you about that and give you an update. So we again wanted to address the need in the community for getting samples that are well characterized, individuals with lipedema, and controls to understand a baseline about what's different in lipedema versus non-affected individuals. So this is going to be a complementary resource to the other single and multi-site biobanks that are currently available at academic centers. We have IRB approval. This is years in the making. And not only do we have IRB approval, we have fantastic investigator, Dr. Ashok Srinivasan, our CSO. I'm the principal, the co-principal investigator on this study. And we have Stacy Heil, who is our Associate Director of Biobank and Accrual. I also want to give a huge thank you to Stephanie Gallia, who helped out with the case report form, and Elena Samujos, who is our Associate Program, or Program Associate, and RedCap Cloud extraordinaire. So our criteria for enrolling people are adults with lipedema, related conditions, and unaffected individuals. Right now, we're not able to recruit those under the age of 18, but we're actively working on that because we know that we're trying to understand onset of lipedema. We're trying to recruit 500 individuals, but we have no ceiling, 500 over 5 years. I am so excited to say that FDRS, yesterday at 8 a.m., we had our first subject consent and give samples to this biobank. So we're officially open. Thank you. So we're right here in Atlanta, and we're working on 2 additional clinical sites to get these biosamples and data. Right now at FDRS, we're collecting blood, urine, and an extensive hour-long questionnaire to really characterize these samples well. In the future, we're going to be collecting punch biopsies and lipoaspirate from people who are undergoing lipedema reduction surgery. All of this leads to the request for proposal that the Lipedema Foundation is going to come out with in April. Early April, we will open this. We have several different awards that are available. Oops, sorry about that. Including, hold on, a collaborative research award, a proof of concept award, and a mentored award. These range in award values, and we're really hoping to highlight in vitro and in vivo model systems, hormone and endocrine biology, and high throughput screening approaches. And this funding, as you know, it takes a while to vet and go through these letters of intent. So the earliest project start date would be February 2026. If you're interested, please reach out to us, follow us on social media, or sign up for our mailing list using this QR code. The whole LF team is here at FDRS. Find us, say hi to us. We're so excited. We worked so hard on the biobank and so hard on our presentations for FDRS, and we're so happy to be here.